Hi, I've got the new 32 channel 200 milliwatt Mini FPV transmitter here from Multi-rotor, and this is the first product in a long time where you need to actually do some soldering. Because this thing is so small, to give you an idea, there's a Mobius camera next to it, yes. It is tiny, it is light, but what it has is just this single loom coming off it with bare wires. So we've got to actually terminate this, and what we're going to terminate it to and how we're going to use it changes how we need to wire this. Okay, so if you've got an Andromeda, you're going to have the FPV 12 volts off it. If you're fitting this to a knife, which is most likely because it's built for the knife, you're going to have one of these spare leads coming off the power loom. You're going to have a spare JST, in which case the simplest solution as far as power goes is to actually use a female JST, but they're not necessarily easy to get. You may need to actually just chop the plug off and wire it, but I've got a lead here. I'm going to show you how I'm going to wire this. How you wire it and how you end up connecting it is going to vary for you. Alright, to make things a little simple, I'm just going to unplug the loom from the transmitter, and there it is there. Now I've got my Mobius, which is probably the most likely thing we're going to connect this to. And the Mobius comes with this loom, which plugs in the back, and it has a 5 volt power lead. It's got an audio lead and it's got a video lead. Now, I'm not, for me, going to bother connecting up the audio, and I'm not going to show you how to do the audio in this video, but if you want to connect the audio, there is the white audio input. The principles I show you with wiring the video side of this is exactly the same. Okay, so this is 12 volts here. I get 12 volts from my Andromeda, I get 12 volts from my 3S LiPo on my knife. So what I basically need to do is not touch any of the power wiring on this loom coming out of the Mobius. I need to connect, preferably to, if you can get one, a female JST connector, and that's what I'm going to do. If you can't get one, you can chop the plug off the loom and still solder it up the same way I'm going to solder this up. Now, I'm also going to do a bit more chopping because I want this to easily unplug. So for the Mobius, you get this lead with it. I'm going to chop this up and use it. If you've got one of the other FPV cameras you're going to connect to, one of the other CarbonBird FPV cameras, you need a loom like this, and I would chop the plug off this. These make it a little easier because these are 12 volts, so the wiring's pretty simple with this sort of loom. If you've got a Paris V5, what you'll probably want to do is end up with a normal servo plug on the end. So there's a servo lead. Now I'm going to show you the Mobius version and what we need to connect, and then I'm going to show you the Paris version. The Paris version will wire the same way as you would wire directly to the FPV camera. Okay? So, first step, just going to trim up some wires here. Now, ultimately, I will be soldering this up. Okay? I'm not going to touch that loom. I'm going to grab this loom, and I'm going to chop this plug off here. Alright, so that's basically all I need to wire up for the Mobius. Okay, so I've got my video connector to the Mobius, my power connector to the loom, and I've got these 3 wires coming off my micro VTS. Okay, now normally you're going to solder this. If you're going to solder this, I suggest you actually place a little bit of heat shrink tubing, just cut a couple of short lengths, put them over these wires before you do this. So after you finish soldering, you can put the heat shrink over the solder joint and shrink it on. I'm only going to twist the wires today in this video, just for the sake of simplicity. Alright, so what you'll need to do later on is go back and solder the wires, and do your heat shrink over the top. Remember to put the heat shrink on before you start twisting wires together. Alright, so step 1, trim off any pre-soldered ends and strip your wires. I like to strip about 1 centimetre off, which is a bit more than 1/4 of an inch for those of you who don't understand metric. Okay, so the wires are pretty simple because the colours all match up. So I've got a black and a yellow, right? A red and a black, and I've got a black, red and a yellow. So what I need to do is twist my 2 blacks together here. So the JST and the servo lead, I'm going to twist those 2 blacks together. And the 3rd black together. So I've got the 3 black wires all together. Simple enough. Okay, then I'm going to twist the 2 yellow wires together. And then I'm going to twist the red wires together. Now, I always twist wires together before I tin them, before I solder them, because as an old tech teacher of mine told me, kept drumming into me when I was doing all this stuff, a good mechanical joint is a good solder joint. So if the joint is good mechanically before you solder it, it will be good after you solder it. All the solder does is actually bind permanently, if you like, the joint. So there I have it. That's actually the loom ready to go. Okay, so I've got my plug for the video, I've got my plug to go to the Mobius loom, and I've got my plug to go to power. So all I really need to do right now is solder those 3 joins up, and what I will then do, actually I'll show you when I do the next loom. So that's loom number 1. Alright, so let's just pull that apart, straighten the leads out. So if I want to connect this to a Paris or to a CarbonBird camera. Now the CarbonBird camera looms also, by the way, have on them, of course, a audio lead. So you could just twist the audio lead to this. If you really want to do the audio out of the Mobius into the video transmitter, you would cut this lead off, the black and white one. The black joins to black, the white joins to white. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so I've got a servo lead here because I want to run this micro transmitter off Paris V5 and use my on-screen display. So this lead, different leads to different colours, but basically you'll have brown, red. This is brown, red and orange. You might have black, red and white. They're probably the 2 most common servo cables I've seen. Brown or black will be ground, red's always power, and the orange or the white will be the video. So I'll strip those ends off, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 3 wires for my VTX and the 3 wires for my servo lead or my camera lead, and again match them up and twist them together. So in this case it's orange to yellow, red to red, black to brown. Now that connects the video through, but nothing's going to have 12 volts applied to it. So again I'm going to take my little female JST or chop the plug off the end of the feed coming from your Andromeda. The only reason I use the connector is I like to be able to unplug things easily. But you don't need to. I mean, as long as you can unplug it somewhere, 1 end or 2 ends are unpluggable, and that's unpluggable, this is unpluggable. So it wouldn't matter if this was hardwired permanently to the Andromeda. So, black to the black and brown, reds to the reds. Okay, and there I have it. That's ready to solder up, and of course I would have put my heat shrink on over the wires before I started this so I could insulate them off afterwards. Alright, so there I've got my power connector for my 12 volt feed, I've got my video transmitter connector, and I've got my servo plug ready to plug into my Paris V5. Could do exactly that same method for the video lead coming off one of the CarbonBird cameras. And of course the CarbonBird camera lead will also have audio, so if you want to connect that to the audio feed into the video transmitter, go right ahead. I never downlink audio, I never use it, I wouldn't be bothered. All you're going to hear is the motors buzzing, and it will be very annoying. So I don't even record. If I've got an option, I don't even record audio on the airframe. Alright, so let's assume I've soldered those up. The next step is to sort of straighten this out. Okay, so I always twist the joins like that. Alright, because it just makes them mechanically sound before you solder them. And then what you will need to do is straighten them out a bit, depending on where you've put your piece of heat shrink. So what I'll do is I'll bend, in this case, 2 of the wires back across each other. I'll show you that. Alright, so I've bent that back. So the soldered piece of wire is actually laying against these pieces. And then I'm going to slide my piece of heat shrink that I've got sitting, waiting on this piece of wire, up over all that connection and then shrink it. So it looks like a straight through wire when I'm done. Just bend these over. You can imagine the heat shrink on it. So it looks like a straight through connection when it's done, but it's not. They're actually twisted together in the heart, and that will make sure that this is a reliable loom. So that's it. That's how you wire up the new Mini transmitter. I'm really liking this thing. I love the weight, I love the size. I'm actually thinking of switching all of my Scarabs over to this new transmitter. It's yeah, quite stunning, the size and the weight of it. And the price is amazing too, actually. When you consider you get the antenna and the wire adapter with it, the transmitter is actually probably too cheap. Alright, I'll catch you guys online.